Hi, thanks for joining us on Star Property TV yet again. Today we have the founder of Living Space, Ikhram Merican, to teach us how we can transform our property into a homestay. Welcome, Ikhram.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
Thanks for joining us today. And before we get started, maybe you want to tell us about your background and what were you doing prior to venturing into the home sharing business, and which ultimately gave birth to Living Space.
Sure. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur all my life. My working life was a very short stint after I graduated.
Okay.
Then I went on to found a telecommunications company with 4 friends. We came from the same school. It grew, it did quite well, but eventually in 2009, I decided to sell my shares, my portion of the company.
Okay.
I did that and I was moonlighting for a short while. I thought I'll go and do my MBA.
Alright.
So while sitting for the GMAT exams, I chanced upon this is very funny, I chanced upon a forex trading course.
Okay.
And the promises were very nice, so I decided to go and try it out. But that led me to another introduction with an internet marketing person. And the things he said resonated with me because I'm a marketing guy.
Yep.
And so that started me down a path. I went and did courses on digital marketing, search engine optimization, Google AdWords.
Yep.
And I tried these things. They worked very well. So I started doing a bit of consulting work there. And on the side, I started a small blog where I blogged about property.
Okay.
It was called damansarapadana.com.my.
Okay.
And when I started that, I decided to do a bit of SEO work, just apply the techniques that I've learned. And the website gained traction. People started calling me and asking me, what should I buy? Or is this a good buy? Things like that. And at that point, I decided, let me try out real estate. Since I'm helping people do buy real estate, I might as well be part of the transaction. So I joined a real estate agency, and I did quite well there. In fact, I was one of their top agents for 2 years in a row. Yeah. And in 2013, I noticed that there was a drop in transactions. And it affected me mostly because I focused on the high-end market.
Alright.
So that's where the biggest hit was. And so I was looking at different ways. I'm very analytical.
Alright.
And I was looking at different ways to improve my sales or to maintain a certain level of income. And that's when I chanced upon vacation rentals. And as they say, the rest is history. I started Living Space, and here I am today.
So for those people out there who still they're quite unsure of what exactly Living Space is about, perhaps you would like to tell us about Living Space.
Sure. Living Space is a vacation rental company. So we provide home sharing services with a very strong focus towards innovation in this sphere. And one of our core principles is personalized hospitality. So we're very focused on personalized attention to all our guests that come in.
All right. And you've become an expert in the business of home sharing or homestays. What exactly was the impetus?
Like I mentioned earlier, it was like all the things in my life. It was chance. It was circumstances. Because I noticed a drop in transactions, I became very serious about looking at how I can make my income more stable. As a real estate negotiator, your income can be very cyclical.
Yep.
There's lots of ups and downs. So I wanted to find a way where it could be more stable.
Right.
And during this period, I was also, I like to attend talks, basically to continuously improve on my knowledge. So during one such talk on London properties, I noticed that the property managers there were using vacation rental sites to rent out these properties. And I went back. This was the first I had ever heard of vacation rentals.
Okay.
Prior to this, I do not know about. I've heard of homestays. Home sharing is a slightly different concept. And so I went back, I did my research, and I thought that this might work In fact,
what is the difference, if you don't mind me asking, home sharing and homestays?
a homestay is a more holistic cultural exchange
Okay.
between visitors from a different country and a host in a different country. Home sharing is less about that, and it's more about the vacation.
Yep. Okay.
So people are coming for a vacation. It's more of an alternative to a hotel.
Mm-hmm. So, if you don't mind me asking, are you also a property investor yourself?
Yes, I am.
So, as an investor today, when you are on the look for a new property, do you invest with the intention of, okay, I'm going to invest in this property to use it solely for homestays, or are you only propelled to use it as a homestay or a home sharing unit if you can't find long-term tenants?
These days, if I'm investing in property, it's primarily to run it as a home sharing. I don't look for long-term tenants anymore for multiple reasons. So basically, I look at how feasible it is to run home sharing, and then the other thing, of course, is capital appreciation. So these two things are very important to me.
Okay. And would you say by and large, homestays now are offering better ROI for property investors than your typical long-term rentals?
Definitely, but there's a long-standing mantra when it comes to investments: the higher your returns, the higher your risks. So yes, there's definitely more opportunity for higher ROI, but there's also risks to it, which means you can get a lot of returns, or you may not get as good returns as you expected, maybe lower than going on a long-term tenancy.
And not as stable as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and
It can get stable, but effort is required.
yeah. And how can someone get started? Say I'm an investor, I have a unit that's empty right now, How can someone get started? Can any type of property, be converted into a homestay, or, it requires certain characteristics, that make it feasible?
Okay, generally speaking, certain characteristics are required. It has to fit certain criteria.
Okay.
And for me, the criteria I look for is there's 4 things that a property that will do well on home sharing should have. The first is it should be close to tourist locations.
All right.
So its proximity to tourist attractions is very important.
Yep.
The second is its proximity to transportation hubs.
Okay.
The third thing is proximity to shopping mall. And when I say shopping mall, I don't mean your regular suburban shopping malls. I'm talking about shopping malls with an international flavor that attracts tourists. And of course, proximity to recreation around the area.
And what about the cost involved? If you have an empty unit, how much money we have to fork out, to get started in this business?
Okay, typically for a 2-bedroom apartment, about 1,100 square feet, 1,100 to 1,200 square feet, you're looking at about 50 to 60,000.
50 to 60,000 spent.
Yeah, and talking about complete setup. One thing to keep in mind when you're setting up for vacation rentals is that the guests you're going to get are very different from long-term tenants.
Yeah.
So they're not fixated with quality. They are fixated with functionality, practicality, and the fact that everything works.
Yep.
So if you're able to do that, you can actually do it quite cost effective.
Right. And also, what are the kind of furnitures necessary? Because if you actually look at some of these homestays, it's very well furnished, it's very conducive. I think it's also kind of necessary that it's designed well so that people would actually want to pick your homestay over another, for instance. So what are the kind of normal furnishing that's needed?
Sure. Primarily, as you mentioned, you've seen a lot of homestays that look nice. So the primary goal, if you want to get a lot of people staying in your place, is to look as photogenic as possible.
Okay.
After you have got that right, there's a long list of furnishing that is required. Of course, your usual things like the couch, bedding, lounge area, sofa sets. All that is necessary, but you have to go to details as well. Cutlery, ironing board, hairdryer. We go down to further details like shampoo, soap.
Wow.
Yeah. So it needs to be fully functional for a tourist. Someone who's coming on a vacation, they don't have time to go and shop for soap or toilet rolls and all that. So these basic things need to be provided.
So when you say photogenic, basically what you're saying, it has to be Instagrammable. It has to be Insta-worthy, as they would say.
Yes, yeah. Because let's face it, the primary way that people are going to find you on a vacation rental site is through the photos.
Yeah. Okay, and we've talked about the cost of starting up, but what about the cost of upkeep? Is it high to continue to maintain these units?
With a proper system in place, it's not very high. So when I first started out, I was spending a lot on maintenance, and only because we are not doing regular preventive maintenance.
Okay.
So then you get an aircon that needs a major repair or a broken fan, things like that. But if you're doing regular preventive maintenance, meaning your aircons are serviced regularly, your plumbing is checked regularly, the cost for a 2 bedrooms, like I just mentioned, 1,100 square feet, you're looking at about 280 ringgit a month.
Oh, that's not too bad actually. Yeah. And as well as how much effort is one thing is the cost, but the effort. If you maintain a 9 to 5 job, can you still handle homestay on the side?
You can. The effort required is high. Again, this is a basic rule of investing or earning money. You need to put in effort, otherwise you're not. What you put in is what you're going to get out.
Yeah, that's true.
So it is time consuming, but with proper systems in place, you can work around that. So if you have a 9 to 5 job, but you've got a good mechanism for say a automated method for people to check into your apartment, you don't have to be present. And if you're doing your maintenance properly, you won't get as many complaints, you won't be running it.
How can I get an automated check-in system?
It varies. Sometimes you need to be innovative because if you're operating in a service apartment, for example, security might be tight, so your guests can't actually go straight to the apartment. So things like you may drop the keys off in the mailbox and have a password, a combination lock on the mailbox. So you keep the keys in, you provide your guests with the combination numbers, then they can come in straight to the mailbox, take the keys in. Go up.
That's actually not a bad idea indeed. And what are the sites do you release your units on actually?
I am on Airbnb, HomeAway, Holiday Letting, TripAdvisor. There's actually quite a few. I'm on almost all of them.
I see. And the idea of homestays, have somewhat become all the rage, in recent times, and we've seen it booming even in Malaysia, How do you capture leads in such a competitive space now?
Two things. Number one is visibility, and the second is uniqueness. So you need to be as visible as possible. Like you say, there's a lot of clutter in the market. You need to differentiate yourself. You can differentiate yourself in many ways, but the primary way is your services. So all these sites depend on a peer review system. And it's very important you pay attention to that. So if people are reviewing you nicely and talking about what's unique about your place, it's going to go to the market. And Airbnb, for example, has a method or a scoring system similar to Google search engine algorithm. So they have an algorithm to decide what properties, what listings are shown on first. Among things you need to do is again focus on your reviews, and then it's also very important to be tinkering with your account often. So you're always updating your calendar, you're checking your prices, you're responding quickly. These things tell all these home sharing sites that the host is serious about hosting, and it gives you better visibility.
And you also mentioned in a recent talk, when you actually started taking better angled pictures, you get your results also start to improve. Maybe you want to talk about a little bit about your experience.
Sure. I can tell you about Airbnb's experience. For example, the founders Joe and Brian and Nathan, of course. When the website wasn't as successful as it was supposed to be, and they did a lot of thinking, and then they discovered that the photos didn't look nice. So they actually went down to New York, where most of their listings were, and visited every host and took professional photos for them free of charge.
I see.
Airbnb still does that today,
Okay.
but that was their turning point.
Wow.
And for me as well, if you've been at some of my talks, I have shown photos I used initially
Okay.
and the photos that I take these days. There is a huge difference. And again, people are attracted to pictures. So
Yeah.
your pictures really need to paint 1,000 words.
I see. And for the most part, we have talked about the positives of, running a home sharing business. But what about the risk involved? What about the challenges you have faced as well?
There's plenty of risk and challenges, but all can be overcome.
Okay.
Some of the risks, one of the major concern for people, but it's actually not the highest risk, is damage to your property. In my experience, and I've looked at statistics, damage to your property is actually very low. It's so low, it's almost negligible, but you still need to be cautious. In the first week that I did Airbnb, I did get a guest that didn't damage the property, but they partied hard.
Wow.
So the place was a disaster, and they didn't check out on time, and I was having another guest coming in at 2 p.m. that day. So this was a nightmare for me, but I got better over time. So basically, be cautious about who you are letting the apartment to.
Okay.
Most of these websites have allow you to converse with your potential guests before they arrive.
I see.
So communicate, speak a lot, find out their purpose, things like that. It helps you filter out the bad. Other risks include, or for me, the biggest risk is low occupancy. And this is a much bigger risk than people damaging your property. And the only way to increase your occupancy, like I said earlier, is visibility and uniqueness. So you need to be as unique as possible, and you need to be as visible as possible.
All right. And some of the biggest cities recently we've seen Barcelona, Amsterdam, and even New York implementing very strict regulations when it comes to this home sharing business. What are the legal challenges in Malaysia? Have our lawmakers been receptive of this type of business?
It's still too early to say, but all indicators show towards our lawmakers being receptive to this. If you look at Uber and how the government has handled Uber, for example, I think this is a prelude to how they're going to tackle the issue with Airbnb, and it's quite positive actually. We've been quite receptive to new technology, and tourism in Malaysia is a big industry. Globally, we've got the 11th highest number of visitors to our country.
With the weak ringgit, we're expecting more.
More, yes. The government is expecting. I've tracked our cumulative average growth rate for the last 10 years, and it's at 6.5%.
Wow. Okay.
Last year we had 27.5 million tourist arrivals. If the cumulative average growth rate continues, we will hit 36 million by 2021, and the government expects 36 million tourists by 2020.
Okay.
Airbnb is facilitating this, so the government, I believe, would seriously look into Airbnb as something that is a positive into our tourism industry as opposed to a negative.
All right. Ikhram, it's been an insightful conversation. If people want to learn more about you, where can they keep in touch or follow you on any social sites and stuff like that?
I've got my website and a blog. It's www.livingspace.com.my. I also write. I've written for various publications and articles. So just look out for me in magazines and my website.
All right. Alright guys, we hope you've learned a lot from this interview. If you're looking to embark on this home sharing business, one of the sites where you can actually lease your units on is of course iBilik. It's free, so go ahead and make the most of it. Once again, thanks for joining us on Star Property TV. I'm Jonathan Roberts. See you next time.